You have questions?
What is slashing?
We have answers.
Slashing is, like that, you know?
Mm-hmm. And, there's a penalty for that?
Yeah. You do that, you go to the box, 2 minutes by yourself, and you feel shame, and then you get free.
This is CBJ in 30.
Anything you folks want to know about the fascinating world of pro hockey, here we go.
Tweet your questions by using the hashtag CBJIN30.
We'd like to remind you folks, keep your questions within the boundaries of good taste.
Here's your host, Bob McGilligan.
And CBJin30 rolls on for this Wednesday, June 11th, 2014, in what could be the final day of the National Hockey League's 2013-2014 season. That would become fact tonight at Madison Square Garden in New York if the Los Angeles Kings beat the New York Rangers, thus sweeping the Stanley Cup final. Season would be over. And then a lot of interesting talk would begin. But the first thing that has to happen is the Kings have to win that game tonight. And they were all about saying the right things after the game 2 nights ago, talking about, well, the fourth one is always the hardest one to win. Getting that fourth win is the toughest one. So we'll see how tough it is. If they play like they played on Monday night, it's not going to be that tough. It'll be over. But you don't play the game on paper, right? You play the game on the ice. So we'll find out what happens with that. Before I get to Stanley Cup final talk, I want to address little Blue Jackets stuff that's going on. Aaron Portzline of the Columbus Dispatch putting out a report a couple of hours ago saying that Brad Larson, the head coach of the Springfield Falcons, is a possible replacement on the Blue Jackets coaching staff for Dan Highnote, who has informed the organization he's not coming back. So that is not confirmed. He has not been hired. This is just a report that Aaron Portzline is putting out from the Dispatch. Now, let me just break this down for you. If you're wondering, is that a good move? Is there a more experienced guy that the Blue Jackets should be looking at or that they could look at? Or is he the right guy? Is he the right fit? If this comes to fruition, I will tell you this. I would be a full backer of this decision to bring Brad Larson here. And there are numerous reasons why, and here they are. Number one, the man's been in the organization for the past 4 years, and he has done a great job in Springfield. He started out as an assistant for Rob Riley. He then moved on to be the head coach in Springfield. He's had good teams the last couple of years. Those teams have performed well. Now, they did not win a Calder Cup. I get that. But the American Hockey League is a different beast. And a lot of what happens in the playoffs is it's not like the Stanley Cup playoffs. At least not with some teams. I don't even know how to explain it to you. Sometimes you have these veteran-laden teams in the AHL, and they don't perform in the playoffs like you think they should or they would. So, to me, you measure the American Hockey League based on the regular season and the way your team plays throughout that, what are they playing now, the 80 games, 76 games, whatever they're playing. Used to be 80, it's 76 now, I think. Anyway, that span, to me, that's where you measure not just a team, but the job of a coach and what gets done in that span. And don't forget, with a coach in the American Hockey League, they are always losing their best players. Throughout those 76 games, you never have your full team together. You'll have a team on day one, and even day one, you might not have what is your quote-unquote full team because somebody might have gotten hurt in training camp, and somebody that would have been in Springfield is now playing in Columbus. And believe me, despite what you may think over the years, they never take the bad players from the American Hockey League team and bring them up to the NHL. You're always losing your top guys, no matter who those guys are. The guys that are usually the most skilled, have the most points, your best defensemen, your best forwards, your top goalies, those are the guys that always get called. So you are always juggling your lineup. You are consistently juggling your lineup. Sometimes you are juggling your lineup right before your game starts. And that happens quite frequently down there. You have a morning skate, it's a game day. You have a morning skate, everybody skates. All of a sudden, you get a call after the morning skate, everybody's gone home. You get a call, hey, guess what? We had practice in Columbus today. Somebody took a puck off the side of the knee. They can't play 2 days from now. We need a guy today. And again, that's going to be one of your top players that is going to be out of your lineup that night and on a plane to join the NHL club. And you've got to juggle. So your lineup it could be different from 11 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. Every day. Every single day. So there's always a challenge to being a coach there. But the biggest challenge to being a coach in the American Hockey League is to groom the prospects. That's really what it's about. What do you get out of the young players? How do you develop the young players in the organization and get them ready? And how much help you have is decided upon the veteran players that you have on your team. And in my opinion, and I spent 10 years in that league, so I feel that saying this, I've got a pretty good reference point to say this. I think in the last 2 seasons, when Brad Larson has been the head coach in Springfield, that he has had a great group of veterans, and it's been led by Ryan Craig, who is their captain, up and down, NHL, AHL, but he gets it. He understands his role. He knows what it's all about, and he knows that he's at the point of his career where helping guys like Ryan Johansson and Matt Calvert and whoever, that's his role. That's what he needs to do. Play as well as he can, lead by example, make sure these guys are doing the things that they should be doing to become pro players. And so he's been great in that role, but Brad has done a great job, and players rave about him. How many times in the last 2 years have I sat down and talked with a Matt Calvert or Cam Atkinson after he was there during the lockout, or Boone Jenner who played down there during the playoffs, and they mention without being prompted Brad Larson and the experience they had in Springfield and the job that he did and how he helped them. So if he winds up being here, to me, that's great. Because here's the bottom line. When guys are in the American Hockey League, I don't care if you're a player, you're a coach, you're an equipment guy, you're a medical trainer, you're a radio guy. Your ultimate goal is to climb to the top of your profession. Your ultimate goal is to be in the National Hockey League. That's what you are striving for. And for some, it never happens. For some, they top out in college. For some, they top out in the ECHL. For some, they top out in the AHL. And a select few of us are lucky enough to be able to get to the top and get to the National Hockey League and perform at this level. So that's why everybody is there. Because I think and there's been a lot of talk here about coaches, with the coaching vacancies, the head coaching spots that are open in the NHL. There's been a lot of talk about, who's the next young coach, who's a guy that might come up from the minor leagues. And there are a couple of guys that are being talked about over in Pittsburgh. That they're talking with John Hines, who's their coach in Wilkes-Barre. They're also talking to the guy in Charlotte. Was it Jeff Daniels? Is in Charlotte. And, of course, that was Carolina's top affiliate. Jim Rutherford has moved from Carolina to Pittsburgh. Could he be a possibility? Willie Desjardins is the head coach of the Texas Stars. Dallas's top team. They're in the Calder Cup final right now. So he's a hot name, a hot ticket guy. And I think some people cringe when they think about bringing up somebody from the AHL to take a job in the NHL as a coach, whether it be a head coach or an assistant coach. I think from a fan's perspective, one of the things that you say, especially if it's a guy that wasn't a big-name player in the NHL, I think one of the first things that goes through your mind is, well, is this guy really qualified? Is this the right way to go? Is there a better guy? And the fact of the matter is, a lot of times there's not a better guy. And it all goes back to that thing. I remember when I was first getting into this whole thing that I do. What is that? I don't know. But I remember when I was first trying to get into this business, and you're trying to get jobs, and people are saying, well, you need some experience. But yet nobody will hire you to get a job, to get the experience. So you're constantly knocking on doors and having them shut because people are saying, well, you don't have enough experience. But nobody will give you that experience. You got to battle until you find the place where you get that, and then you can start to branch out from there. And Brad Larson is in that position now. You know, he knocked on doors. He got an assistant coaching job in Springfield. Then he got the head coaching job in Springfield. And now quite possibly he could be an assistant here. And when people say, well, wouldn't you want to go to being a head coach? Why would you go to be an assistant coach? Listen, you need to be well-rounded. And if you want to be a candidate to be a head coach in the National Hockey League, there are a lot of things that you have to have. And you have to have experience as a head coach. And Brad's got that. He can check that off his resume in the AHL. But being an assistant coach and being around an experienced coaching staff is something else that will carry a lot of weight. And let's look at it this way, too. Todd Richards just signed an extension. He's got a 3-year contract. If you're Brad Larson, you're looking at that and saying, 3 more years in the American Hockey League. Potentially. I mean, if you think the head coaching job might open and you might get promoted, and then the guy gets a 3-year extension, and trust me, this would not be looking badly at Todd Richards. He would shake Todd Richards' hand and congratulate him for that, for sure, because there are hard jobs to get. They're even harder to keep. Okay? But when you look at that too, when you look from your own perspective, you're saying, well, where are the opportunities? Where do I have a chance? And if he gets the chance to come here and be an assistant coach, I think he would jump at it. And it would be great for him because he can sit back, he can watch how Todd runs things, how Craig Hartsburg runs things. He will learn a lot more. He knows a lot already. He will learn a lot more, and he'll learn how things will go at this level. And even more importantly to me, listen, Dan Highnote to me is not only a great person, but he's a great friend. And he brings so many intangibles to a team. So many things. I mean, he's a Stanley Cup champion with the Colorado Avalanche. He's personable. I just said this, I think it was a week ago. I said he's the kind of guy that can walk into a room with 10 strangers that he's never met in his life and to walk out with 10 best friends. That is his personality. That's who he is. He's a younger guy, mid-30s guy. Brad Larson and Dan Highnote are very good friends. They played together in the Colorado organization. And Brad is the same type of guy, 36 years old. He's a younger guy. He can relate at different levels than some other guys. And half to 3/4 of the players here already know him. And they already trust him. So if that happens, please don't wonder to yourself, was this the right move? Could they have found somebody more experienced? Because if it happens, I think it's a good move. And I think it comes as close as you can get to replacing what you're losing with Dan Highnote leaving the organization. You're not going to equal everything. That's no offense to Brad Larson. Dan Highnote's a special guy. He's a special individual. But again, in my opinion, this is as close as you get. And I don't think you miss a beat. And I think there are going to be a lot of positives that come out of it, not only for him, but for the organization. All right? And again, that's a report. I'm going off of if it happens. And they've got a couple of guys in Springfield. One of them is Jared Bednar, who's an assistant coach, but has also been a head coach in the American League and in the ECHL. And in the ECHL, he was in South Carolina with the Stingrays, Charleston, South Carolina, which I've never been to. I heard it's wonderful. Or at least it was when I was back in the ECHL. Or at least I hear the beach area is wonderful. Hilton Head and all that stuff. It's all right there. But, back when I was in the ECHL, I sound like Joe Morgan when he used to be on Sunday Night Baseball. Let's talk about me. No, but I remember that was one of the best places to go. And that's a big market for that league. And that was a big deal. So he's been there. He's run a team there. He's worked in Peoria, which was the St. Louis Blues' top affiliate at the time. So even if you do go that route, and if Larson leaves, you have a guy sitting there that is got the experience, and you could plug into that spot, and I don't think you miss a beat. So we'll see what happens on that. Again, nothing has come down. Aaron Portzline is throwing it out there, and it may happen. There's still extensions that Jarmo Kekalainen is working on with Craig Hartsburg and Ian Clark, the other two assistant coaches. So I don't know. Maybe we just see it all come together at once, and And maybe that's the way it goes down, if it goes down. But, again, I just wanted to hit it today because it just came out a short time ago and tell you, if this happens, I think it's a great move. Not that you care what I think. Well, you must. You're listening. But I think it would be a great move for the organization to do that. All right, I want to give a shout-out. I don't ever do this, but I'll do it today. Well, I'll tell you why I never do it, because I've never had this happen before, but it happens today. I was, what happened yesterday? I was somewhere last evening, and I walked in, I was talking to a guy, and he said, "You're Bob McElligott, aren't you?" And I was stunned. You know, I'm wearing a ball cap. I'm trying to be as incognito as I possibly can, which usually is not hard for me at all. But it was Jordan from the CBJ Artillery Twitter account and one of the founding members of We Are the Fifth Line. So I got a chance to talk with Jordan last night, get a little bit of insight. Hello, Jordan. He told me he listens to the show every day. You know, when you sit in this chair and you talk to an empty arena, you wonder if you're talking to just an empty arena. So it's good to know. I know you're out there. I know you guys are out there because you're on Twitter, sending in your questions and your comments. But Jordan, it was good to meet you yesterday. I appreciate the kind words, and I liked your. It's good to have the feedback and get your perspective on the organization and the things that are happening. I give you mine every day. I like to get yours back. So thank you for that, Jordan. If you have a question or a comment today, you can go ahead and tweet it to me using the hashtag CBJin30. CBJin30 is what you have to use. All right, Stanley Cup Final resuming tonight. Could end tonight. Kings, Rangers, Kings up 3-0 to none. I tweeted out earlier who are going to be the difference makers in tonight's game. CBJ or Die says, I'm guessing Justin Williams and Jeff Carter. I don't think they're quite done tallying points yet. I don't think they are either. Either one of them. Especially Justin Williams. But, I mean, it's, you know, Carter's been all over the place. I know how many of you feel about him, but sometimes you have to give credit where credit's due. And in this series, in the playoffs, he's been where he needs to be. He's scored big goals. He's gotten big points. So if he were to get more points tonight, it would not shock me at all. Mark Scheig says, do you feel like the Rangers were lucky to get to the final, or will they be contenders for years to come? They're lucky. I think they're lucky. Will they be contenders for years to come? You look at the Kings, you look at the Blackhawks, those two teams look like they're going to be contenders for years to come. A lot of people thought the Penguins were going to be contenders for years to come. And in ways they are, but they're not back they weren't in the Eastern Conference Final, they're not in the Stanley Cup Final. So in the East, when you look at it as it stands right now, I don't see teams, well, maybe Boston. But who knows what they're going to do after they didn't make it to the Eastern Conference Final. They might, there's a lot of rumors about things that they're going to shake up and try to, get better. Everybody's going to try to get better. But the Kings and the Blackhawks, they look like teams that are poised to be there every year for the next 2-3 years and duke it out. In the East, do I think the Rangers, I'm not looking at the Rangers right now like, well, if they don't get it done this year, they'll be back there next year. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will be back. Maybe they'll use their speed and their good goaltending and, Ryan McDonough will become even better defensively and maybe. But if the question is, do I think they're a contender or are they lucky? I think they're lucky. I mean, everything lined up for them. They had to come back from a 3-1 deficit against Pittsburgh. I get that. And they deserve all the credit in the world for that. They were down on the mat. They got back up. They rallied. They beat the Penguins. The Penguins in many ways beat themselves too. But they took advantage of that. So they got through that series. They beat Montreal. But again, they didn't have to beat Boston. I mean, I still think if Boston was there, Boston would be playing the Kings right now. which would be a much, well, I almost said much more interesting series, and that's hard to say when 2 games went to overtime, but it would be more of a bigger bruising series between LA and Boston. Anyway, it doesn't matter because the Bruins aren't there. But I don't see the Rangers being a team. The Rangers were a team that early in the year we were saying, man, are they going to make the playoffs? You know, Vigneault came in to take over as the head coach for Tortorella, changed all the systems, and, you know, but they're there. They're there. Nate Orsini says, with a 3-0 lead, I can see the Kings sitting back, wanting to close the season at home. That being said, I still see 7 games. Well, Nate also has an avatar of a Cleveland Browns hat, so I can understand why you might see 7 games in this series. I don't. Maybe you see things that aren't possible. Ha! Just kidding with you, Nate. But here's the deal. I'm not kidding with you on this part. You do not sit back with a 3-0 lead hoping to win at home. Because here's what happens. Number 1, and I just talked about the Rangers coming back against Pittsburgh. You do not want the New York Rangers to all of a sudden think they have a chance. That's number 1. Number 2, you can't be cocky enough to think if we lose tonight, we'll win at home 2 days from now. You can't, because that's just not the nature of the beast. Anything can happen. Would they like to win at home? Sure, I'll bet they would. They did last time. It's great. Raise the Stanley Cup in front of your own fans instead of a bunch of people booing you. Yeah, that's awesome. But you can't just expect it, well, let's hand one away. You want to finish it. You want it to be over. And if you have a chance to end it tonight, finish it. They're not going to sit back. They're going for a win tonight. The Rangers are going to be, well, the Rangers should be as tough as they've ever been in this entire playoffs tonight. If they're not, you know, I was reading these articles about how they were after practice yesterday. A lot of head hanging, quiet, moping a little bit. Alain Vigneault said something to the effect of, pardon us if we're not in a great mood today, but we'll be here to play tomorrow. Really? That struck me a little bit weird. Because you would expect there would be the fire on the optional practice day in addition to the actual game day. Maybe it's just how I read it and all that stuff. I wasn't there, so I don't know. So maybe it's different. But they're going to come out, and they're going to the Rangers have got to play for pride tonight. They could you imagine what they will have to endure if they come out flat and they go down early in that game? Endure from their own fans? What was one of the headlines the other day after they lost? We waited 20 years for this? Jeez. Better not get down early in that game, boys, or it'll be a long night. Fro has this question. Who's your Conn Smythe winner? That's a good question, and there are a lot of candidates. I think it's more muddled than it has been in other years. Sometimes there's a guy that just jumps right to the top of the pack, and you say, well, if they win it, he's the guy. I don't know that it's necessarily that way this year. I think there are lots of, and I'm just going to stick with the Kings because they're up 3-0. They're going to win it. So I'm not even going to talk about a Ranger because how can you when they haven't won a game? But here's the deal. Here are a list of names from the LA Kings. I'll put the 2 that you don't want to hear first. Jeff Carter, Marian Gaborik, Anze Kopitar, Justin Williams, Drew Doughty. To me, those are 5 guys. There's a handful of guys, literally, that any of them could take that trophy home for being the most valuable player in the playoffs. Now, who would I pick out of that? I would narrow it down to 2 guys. The 2 guys I like are Justin Williams and Drew Doughty. And I know Doughty only has 1 point in this Stanley Cup final, but he gets that defensive assignment against the top forwards of the Rangers every day. And he is so dynamic, and he's done so many good things during the playoffs, whether it's been scoring goals or preventing goals. He is a legitimate candidate in my mind. But I'm going to say Justin Williams. And I'll tell you why. I just love this guy. I just love his game. He's 32 years old, which makes him old, quote unquote, in this sport. But he just finds a way. He's not flashy, but he's always there, whether it's winning a game in a Game 7. Again, all-time points leader in Game 7s in his career. Whether it's winning a series in Game 7, rather, whether it's getting the game-winning goal in Game 1 of this series, whether it's that fantastic pass he made through two defenders to put on the stick of Jeff Carter to score a goal with less than 1 second left in the game on Monday night at Madison Square Garden. He is just there. He's everywhere. And you don't even know until all of a sudden the puck's gone in the net and you're like, well, who was responsible for that? And I'm not talking about who shot it and it went in the net. Go back and see who was responsible and see how many times he gets the second assist, which means he started the play with a turnover. And he gave it to somebody else and they passed it and the shot goes in. See how many times he has the first assist. Just see how important the goals that he has been involved in have been in these games. And that's why I like him. I like him a lot. I think he comes across as a great leader. And I like him. And I think that he would be my vote. If I were to get a vote, then I would vote for him. Kevin wants to know if Jonathan Quick gets another shutout in Game 4, then would he win the Conn Smythe? Well, Kevin, no, I don't think so. He won it the last time the Kings won 2 years ago, and he was dominant. And he hasn't had the same dominance, I don't think. Great shutout the other night. He was dominant in that game. In Game 3, he was dominant, no question. But it's not like it was 2 years ago where he was a clear-cut, oh my goodness, if they didn't have this guy, they wouldn't win it. Because they have a lot of guys carrying the load. A lot of them. So I don't think he will get it this year. I don't think he cares. He just wants a ring. He just wants to hoist the Stanley Cup. And that's really true for all of those guys. I'm sure Justin Williams is the same way. Does he care if he gets a Conn Smythe? Well, to say he doesn't care wouldn't be right, but the fact is that I think it would be nice. It's like icing on the cake, right? Hey, we won the Stanley Cup. Oh, and I also was the MVP of the playoffs. But that's not what they're focused on. None of those guys. I mentioned those 5 guys. I will guarantee you that none of the 5 are sitting around saying, man, I hope I win the Conn Smythe Trophy. They're all sitting around saying, man, I hope I get to lift the cup tonight. I hope tonight is the night. Again, Nate, there will be no sitting around waiting to win it in L.A. There will be the L.A. Kings looking to finish off the New York Rangers tonight, looking to end the season on this 11th day of June. And as I said, if that happens tonight, then what happens tomorrow? Rumor Central begins. It's already begun. There's already a ton of rumors. Here's one before I go. I'll give you one. As soon as I find it here. Somebody wrote, where is it? Here it is, David. Do you see either Joe Thornton or Patrick Marleau being a fit in Columbus? And would Yarmo do a deal for one or both? Do I see them being a fit? Of course they're a fit. They're great players. Can you fit them into your salary cap and who would you have to give up to get them and all that stuff? That's a totally different question. Would Yarmo make that deal? If it was the right deal and it was going to make the team better, of course. It's too bad that I don't think you could acquire Joe Thornton without giving up Ryan Johansson, because that would be kind of neat to watch Ryan Johansson give up his number 19 for the player that he idolized growing up. And I'm sure he'd give it up. Probably turn into a number 91 or something. Maybe be another Steven Stamkos. Who knows? I'm just getting crazy now. The craziness starts tomorrow. I don't think Joe Thornton would wear a different number. Well, he could. I guess he could if he wanted to. He could do whatever he wanted to. He's Joe Thornton. But let's leave that craziness for another day. And again, that other day could be tomorrow. if the LA Kings finish the New York Rangers off tonight. It'll be interesting to watch. I just hope it's a good game. The other night, 3-0. I mean, you knew what was going to happen, but, it was still a good game. Quick was excitable to watch. I just want to see a good game tonight no matter what happens. Although, remember, I did predict the Kings would win this whole thing. Don't forget about that. You won't forget. I won't let you. Till tomorrow, I'm Bob McElligott saying thanks and so long.